各位觀眾大家好，歡迎收睇26分鐘見證實錄。今年正值係溫哥華市中心 Victory Square 勝利廣場紀念碑成立100週年，適逢11月11號國殤日，為咗向嗰啲為和平而犧牲嘅英雄烈士致敬，溫哥華嘅主要街道燈柱上面都掛起咗大約1000幅印有退伍軍人相片嘅海報。而家就等我哋一齊去聆聽呢一啲曾經上戰場華裔軍人嘅故事，以及佢哋背後嘅歷程啊！
I remember as a younger person, my father and all the other veterans would be involved in the Remembrance Day marching along. And it's sad now that they've all passed away. So being the 100th year of the cenotaph, that having his banners and all his comrades and people that he fought with being remembered and honored this way, it's truly heartwarming.
Many of our Lo-Wa-Kil, they actually were the descendants of the people that came from China for the building of the railway for CPR. And when the agreement was that when they finished building the railway, CPR would send them home. However, CPR, reneged the promise. And so when they finished the railway, they say, okay, buddy, you stay where you are, and that's it. So they were actually stranded in Canada in a lot of ways. In World War I in 1914, when it came, some of these, Chinese would have, for those who actually were here, had some kids, they would have some younger people that were able to maybe sign up to join the military, but the Canadian government did not want them because, they're Chinese, they're not white, The First World War, the Great War, was terrible. People were just being slaughtered, and the generals don't care about the soldiers. Yeah, they have a class structure, even in Europe, class structure. So let them go and fight, and they can die. So they were really short of manpower. So they wanted people. It doesn't matter where you're from, long as you're able-bodied. We understood there may be about 200 to 300 Chinese that joined the military in Canada in 1915, 16. They joined the ships from there to sail to England and France to join the fight. And the Labor Corps, their function was there to help the second echelon, where they were there to haul ammunition to the front line. They're there to take the wounded and the dead from the battlefield to the rear, echelon, and they're to do all kinds of supporting roles. But as you know, in any war situation, doesn't matter whether you're in the front line, second line, or whatever, you get killed. The bomb comes, you died anyway.
而喺第一次世界大戰結束後嘅幾年時間裏面，華人喺加拿大仍然飽受歧視。
When my father and Chinese growing up, that there was a lot of discrimination. They were treated as second-class citizens. They're not allowed to swim in certain pools, had to sit in the back in theaters.
而喺1923年，聯邦政府推出排華法案，更加係幾乎完全阻止華人進入加拿大。
Head tax that was imposed on the Chinese coming to Canada, and it went from $50 to $100, then to $500, which made it very difficult for the single Chinese man who came to work in the railway to bring family over. So there were very few Chinese women in Canada, and for those who were able to bring them over, they are either the merchants or the ones who actually had some wealth to do that. So even in the early 1920s, there were fewer than a few thousand females in Canada of Chinese descent. We may have about 17, 18, 20,000 men. So there's a very, how should I say it, disproportionate ratio of men and women. And those people that have a family were able to have children. And then by the time that came World War II, those children would be of the young age when their friends are all joining the war, and they want to join up as well.
During World War II, at the very beginning, as I think others have said, the Chinese were not welcome to join the military. But as the war got into 1943-44, the British decided that they needed more personnel, including Asians.
When the British lost their possessions in Hong Kong and Singapore, there was no way that the white people can go in there and infiltrate and be sort of to work behind the enemy lines to help. So they recruited Chinese to join the military, to become commandos, to become so-called spies, or to infiltrate the Japanese controlled territories.
Essentially two groups within the Chinatown community. One that said we should go, and if we do fight and come back, we're going to lobby for citizenship and voting rights. The other group said this country never treated us well, so why would we exert our effort, in fact, risk our lives for a country that wasn't appreciative. So there were certainly those two groups.
On the right-hand side, that's Bing Wong. That's my dad's younger brother. And he also volunteered the same time my dad did. And at that time, they didn't tell their mother, my grandmother, that they were volunteering until a week before they did, because they knew how upset she was. And she said to them, "Why are you volunteering when you're treated as a second-class citizen?" And they just felt that it's something that they wanted to do to prove their loyalty to Canada.
So I think my granddad, who came to Canada about 1886, 87, he came at 16 years old, so he spent most of his life in Canada. I think either my dad or my uncle said, when they asked my granddad, their father, they said, "If it's your decision, if you want to go, go."
So this is your father, right?
Yes. My father is on the left. His name is Frank Wong. And he volunteered and joined the Army when he was 22 years old. The first time he tried to volunteer and join, he was rejected, and then he tried again the second time. So basically, my father was deployed to Europe, and he landed on Juno Beach a month after D-Day. And he said that at the time, there were too many ships and so on, that he was not able to be with the first wave. So he was with the second Echelon workshop. And even a month later, the Juno Beach was not secure, and they still landed under fire. And he said that he was told, when you land on the beach, just to keep on going forward. And they went about 2 or 3 miles in, and they were told right away to dig trench foxholes and to get in and just wait for instructions. And he said it was really a very, very scary time, because they could hear the gun firing and the bombing around them. And then throughout that, he said that they went through and saw a lot of very horrific things. But especially the people that are starving because of how the war had destroyed so many cities.
My Uncle John joined the military and joined the Army in Victoria with the Scottish Regiment. Uncle Peter joined the Royal Canadian Engineers in Chilliwack. As I was saying, as the war went on, the British intelligence finally figured out that they couldn't have somebody from Cambridge or Eton doing espionage work in Southeast Asia, so they recruited Asians to do the espionage work. So the Office of Special Operations Executive, which is the precursor to MI16, Military Intelligence 16, oversees British intelligence. They recruited a number of Chinese Canadians, and the first group was called Operation Oblivion. And my Uncle John was part of that group. There were 13 Chinese Canadians recruited to do what we now know as commando operations, and they were trained in the Okanagan. After the first group was trained operational, moving to 13 people, they decided to have three groups. So the first group was my Uncle Peter, and that's when he became a part of Force 136. My dad, because he was the youngest and he had an illness, a childhood illness, he had difficulty passing the full physical, so he became a reservist with the British Columbia Regiment in Vancouver.
而喺二戰時期，亦都有唔少女性參軍入伍。
When the war came, I think my Aunt Mary saw an opportunity to break from the traditional role of a Chinese Asian female and become independent and become more worldly. So she joined what was then called the Canadian Women's Army Corps, CWACS. She became an instrument technician, and I think that's probably to do with my grandfather's trade. He was a watchmaker. I think just having the tools and the materials around, I think she picked that up, and that became her trade as well during World War II. She was stationed in Ontario.
When they came home in 1945-46, they petitioned the government to say, look, we can fight and die for the country. Why can we not be full citizens? And so they did. And then the government relented and said, right, you guys are going to be given the full rights of Canadian citizenship. And because of that, the whole Chinese community benefited from that.
I really hope the public remember what they did, appreciative for Chinese to be appreciative and learn that we didn't have the right to vote before, but because of these men, we do, and we have all these rights and privileges. I also hope that just Canadians in general look at all the veteran banners, not just the Chinese, and just be so thankful that these people risked their lives and sacrificed so much for our freedom. And and even to take the time to learn a little bit more about them and to get involved. So I think, I guess that's what I'm hoping that they'll remember.
如果話二戰時期嘅華人參軍係為咗爭取自由同埋平等嘅權利，咁戰後參軍嘅華人，佢哋又係懷住點樣嘅心情加入軍隊嘅呢？下一節翻嚟，我哋將會走入華裔軍事博物館，聆聽佢哋嘅故事。歡迎翻嚟節目時間。軍人嘅職責係保衛家園，而華裔加拿大軍人身上唔單止係肩負住國家嘅使命，更加係承載住華裔對於呢一片土地嘅深厚感情。跟住落嚟，就等我哋一齊去了解一下華裔軍人點樣喺軍事歷史之中留下足跡啊！加拿大海陸空退伍軍人協會太平洋280分會主席傾灣表示，佢1972年參軍入伍，到咗2012年從海軍退伍，唔係加軍服役整整40年。佢回憶話，自己從細就對軍營充滿嚮往，呢一份嚮往成為咗佢參軍嘅動力。
Joined the Naval Reserve after I was in Sea Cadets, and it's interesting. I was with my parents in Stanley Park, and as you know, the Naval Base Discovery is located in Stanley Park, and they also have the cadets parading there as well. And I saw some young cadets, wearing the cadet uniform, and I was a teenager. I said, I want to join, and so my parents says, "Oh, don't bother joining. You won't last." My sister says, "Let him join," and so I joined the Sea Cadets, and it was a natural progression when I finished Sea Cadets, and when I went to UBC. I enrolled into the ROUTP program, and then that was commissioning as an officer. And since then, I joined the Navy in the Reserve, and I served ever since with the Reserve until I completed my service and retired a few years ago.
而幾十年嘅軍旅生涯，亦都將最初對軍裝嘅嚮往，逐漸內化成為傾灣身為軍人嘅使命感同責任感。
I think that I wanted to serve. Well, first of all, like anything else, young kids like the uniform, right? So they say, I joined because the uniform looks nice. But I think that there's a sense of service, a service to the country that you feel that you have, you're akin to that whatever life. You want to be part of the freedom fighting and all that, all the glorious terms. But I think that at the end of the day, you just want to be with your friends, because I got some friends of mine who were in Sea Cadets that joined together with me, and so it sort of become, let's all do it together, and I really enjoy my time.
King 表示好幸運自己出世喺和平年代，未曾參加戰爭，亦都從未因為種族而遭到歧視。但係佢始終不忘第一批代表加拿大參軍嘅先僑，以及佢哋嘅犧牲同奮鬥歷史。
I think that I look up to them because they are the one as you have seen the banners of the Frank Wong, Bing Wong, and those other people who came before us. They were in a society where they were not even recognized, not given the same opportunity as what we have today. Even though they were not given those same opportunities, they still went and fought for Canada. That is a big, sacrifice, not knowing whether they'll live or die from that war. And because of what they did, we are today benefiting from what they have done, their toil, their sacrifice. They are the one that we look up to, and I look up to all the time.
1998年喺一批二戰退伍華裔老兵嘅號召之下，加拿大華裔軍事博物館成立。2011年，King Wan成為博物館嘅主席。自嗰陣時起，吸引咗更多人前嚟參觀博物館，傳承華裔加拿大軍人嘅故事，成為 King 嘅使命。
I say that we must change our display every year to make it new. So some of the permanent displays are permanent because those are the history that we cannot, that won't change. We have one panel of the wall behind you that we change every year, and we change it to reflect the current flavor of that year. And we've had, now behind you right now, we had the one for our First Nations warriors. That's about our Aboriginal, fighting men and women. We also had the one for Force 136 about the Chinese Canadian in that particular special operative, executive force. We also have one on the airmen, the Air Force people. We also have one of the family who fought, and the family that fought in the war.
而對於博物館內目前展出嘅物品同埋呢一啲軍人過去嘅故事 ，King 亦都如數家珍。
This model here was actually done by the son of one of our World War II veterans. His name is Trevor Sam, and it's to depict a scenario of his father in World War II. And his father is actually this person here, Douglas Sam. Okay, Douglas Sam. Doug Sam joined the Air Force, and he was part of an air crew in a bomber command that was stationed in England. Now, the plane went over to bomb, Europe to liberate the people from there. And what happened was his plane was shot down, and he survived the plane crash. And because he was Chinese, different than a white person, he was able to go underground, and he put himself as a Chinese student in France. So he was working with the resistance in France to help airmen, soldiers that were able to escape from the German hands to back to England. So he was doing all those resistance work as an underground person. Now, because the fact that they don't want him to be recognized, so as far as the family in Vancouver is concerned, he's missing in action, and nobody knew that he was still alive. So, but the grandmother was quite astute, and maybe he did the jaw sticks or whatever, saying that Doug is still alive. But anyway, nobody knows about it. But what happened was that when he was working in France as underground for the resistance, there's all these Gestapo people running around trying to, go after people. And he actually, here's a model that was done by his son to talk about the scenario where he was in town trying to help the airmen, soldiers to escape back to England. So that's the story of a particular street scene where you can see Doug Sam was there and evading questions from the Gestapo. You see the Gestapo in this black long coat. Usually that's what it is.
而隨住時間嘅推移，戰火雖然已經過去，但係喺唔同文化同種族之間建立連結嘅故事依然延續。Terry Mill 分享咗一個佢家族嘅故事。
My sister married a fellow of German descent. And when my parents met his parents, they found that Bill's father was captured in the same city that my dad, the Canadian, his unit was in the same spot that his father was, and his father fought for the German army. And so the father was sent to a prisoner of war camp in Alberta. So my sister went to school at the University of Alberta and met Bill, the son. Anyways, so when my sister got married, Bill's father stood up and he said, well, your unit captured my unit in Germany, but now my son captured your daughter. So I always thought that was a kind of a funny story, that at times of war, they're on the opposite side. But now, you know, many years later, 25, 30 years later, his son, the daughter and the son from two different sides are coming together to form a family. Yeah, so that was kind of nice.
而作為二戰退伍軍人嘅子女 ，Terry 希望更多人了解父親嗰一輩嘅珍貴故事。
I have two sisters. When we were growing up, my father, he did not talk about his experiences in the war at all. And because he didn't do that, we didn't really ask him questions because he didn't really talk about it. And later, when my dad retired, is when he started to talk about it a lot more and share stories with us. And he said that because of things that he saw during war times when he was in Europe and going through some of the cities that were destroyed through bombs and seeing all the bodies and the people that were starving, it was just something that he just did not want to relive and talk about again. And so basically it wasn't until later that I think he realized that if he doesn't start sharing these stories and talking about it, the stories will be lost and how important they are. And I think that's one of the reasons why also that he thought it was so important to be one of the founders or to start the Chinese-Canadian Military Museum. That's my dad's uniform.
That's her dad's uniform. Yeah. Those woolen things are really itchy, you know, like they don't like it.
I feel that we're losing more and more of our veterans. I mean, you consider they're all in 100, 101 now. So, and I wish that we had captured more stories while they were still alive. And I feel so fortunate that being involved in the museum after my dad passed away, that I had an opportunity to meet many of the veterans as well as the veteran families. So that's something that I really cherish. And some of the members, for example, Monty Lee, we raised funds, and he was the one that said, let's put together through the museum a scholarship to support young people and or descendants of the veterans, as well as young people that support the principles of the museum with a scholarship. So we did 5 years of fundraising and got some funds together, and we had these funds, and with the interest and so on, we are able to offer a scholarship every year.
此外，加拿大華裔軍事博物館仲同華裔博物館同埋華埠掌故館合作，將華裔加軍嘅故事同更多人分享。
I think that not only to our own Chinese community, but to also to the outside non-Chinese community, to let them know that, hey, we have the Chinese population in Canada that are equal partners, and they've contributed as much to the Canadian country, nation building over the years.
这些军人不管是来自于哪一个社区，来自于哪个族裔，他们为了这个国家献出自己的生命，奉献了自己的这个青春，而才换来了我们今天的这个自由民主人权的这种普世的价值。所以这段历史，我觉得这个也代表了我们加拿大这种多元文化这么一个国家。所以我觉得也是对于整个社区每一个社区都是非常有意义的。我们也希望通过这个项目让更好的团结每一个社区，让每个社区都为这个城市、为这个国家而尽自己的一份力量。
好啦，今集嘅節目時間差唔多啦。咁如果觀眾對我哋嘅節目有啲乜嘢意見嘅話，係好歡迎大家以電郵嘅方式同我哋聯絡㗎。我哋嘅電郵地址係 mag26@fairchildtv.com。咁如果觀眾想上網重溫今集嘅節目，亦都可以上到去我哋嘅網站3w.fairchildtv.com， 點擊節目重溫一欄就可以睇得返㗎啦。下星期同樣時間再同大家見面，晚安。